Good morning. This is Ron. It is Saturday morning, a little after 10 a.m., and let's go ahead and get started. So, do we have any questions or comments? And last week we were speaking from Genesis chapter 3, if I remember correctly. Any questions about that or questions about anything? A week has passed. How's things going? Do you see anything, questions or comments, or anything else you want to talk about? Okay. Uh, we did have a question on the table. We can begin with then. On Monday evening, Jackie brought up a question. I don't remember the question exactly, but I remember it dealt with for the assembling together from Hebrews. So, if you will, let's just look at that right quick and see if we and talk about that for a minute. It is Hebrews chapter 10, verses 25. So I don't remember our conversation where we were in our discussion when this came up, but the assembling together. And the funny thing is somebody brought this verse up to me this week as well. If you are there, I'll read it. It says, not forsaking our own assembling together, as is the habit of some, but encouraging one another, and all the more as you see the day drawing near. It starts, as you can see, in the middle of a sentence. It starts right in the middle. So you don't really do that justice starting at that point. Hold on a minute. Let me turn off my stove. Sorry about that. I started to make some hot tea and let the time slip up on me. But anyway, I want to look at this starting at verse 19 in this chapter and try to bring some sense to this. It says, therefore, brothers, we have confidence to enter the holy place by the blood of Jesus, by a new and living way which he inaugurated for us through the veil, that is his flesh. And since we have a great priest over the house of God, let us draw near with a sincere heart and full assurance of faith, having our hearts sprinkled clean from the evil conscience and our bodies washed with pure waters. Let us hold fast the confession of our hope without wavering, for he who promised is faithful. And let us consider how to stimulate one another to love and good deeds, not forsaking our own assembling together, as is the habit of some, but encouraging one another, as all the more as you see the day drawing near. That not only is to me conditional, because the drawing near does mean, or the assembling rather, does mean to just that. It means to assemble or come together. But look at verse 26 to me, because this to me kind of seals the whole thing to me. It says, for if we go on sinning willfully after receiving the knowledge of the truth, there is no longer remains a sacrifice for sin. To me, what this is saying is this is conditional. And if you are truly trying to pursue truth, this gives a list of things that you will be doing or seeing or experiencing rather. And if you are not doing these things, then what good is it to assemble together? So if you are not pursuing truth to the degree or the willfully sinning, in other words, being what this institution that we call a church, are we really pursuing God if we're not doing it in the manner in which is being laid out for us. So that was my question, because it does talk about this assembling together. I guess one of the things that I said to someone this week, I really don't think that the church that is being described in scriptures has been fulfilled as of yet. So what do you guys take on this? What do you see here? What are your opinions?
Where are you coming from again, Ron?
Hebrews chapter 10.
Okay, thanks.
Hebrews chapter 10. And I started with Jackie's question came from verse 25, the assembling together. And all what I was saying is that is conditional. That is talking about the church, and have we established the church yet? If we, because this is not just talking about the willfully sinning. It's not just talking about in the assembly as far as how you conduct yourself, but outside of it. Who are you? How is your daily walk? What do you do every day? How do you treat people? So if you are not following these prerequisites, what good is it to assemble? Is my question.
Good morning, everyone. If y'all hear some noise in the background, I'm doing a little work. But to make an attempt to answer your question, Ron, when you say assemble, and this is just with me personally, I don't have too much fun assembling with people who are like-minded like me. I would prefer to assemble with people who don't think like I think. Diversity. So that's just my outlook on assemble. When you assemble with people, some people are going to assemble with like-minded. Deltas are going to assemble with deltas. Omegas are going to assemble with omegas. Yet who do you assemble with when you have not pledged anything? So that's just my outlook on your question. Thank you.
George, I think you bring up an interesting point. And you really, your example kind of support what I'm saying. The like-mindedness is where we supposed to be right now. You see, so if everybody is moving in that direction, that what I call the church is an outcry for truth throughout the world. When we get to a place where people will forsake their own agendas and see people as people and have a wake up, or refreshing, if you will, and say, "Oh my God, what have we been doing? Look at how we treat people. Look at who we are," and not worry about whether or not I'm black or white. Not worry about if I'm a Republican or Democrat. Not worry about the fact that I am Catholic and you are Protestant. But to come together, that little spark in you catches flame, and you see from your soul who you really are. And there is a movement in the land. That's what I call the church. That's what I see. But as long as we have churches on every corner and we're so divided, not only by race, but by our beliefs and denominations, and we flip this thing around to not making any attempt to move in line with what is being said, we make it fit our lifestyle, and the ministers even flip it around to please the people. I'm saying there is no church, not the way the scripture talks about or wants us to come together. So that is what I'm saying, and I agree. When that time comes, we will be like-minded in that manner. It will not matter your intellect or your status or whoever you are in life. What will matter is we're all seeking truth, and we start from where we are at that time, whether we are, you know, rich or poor, whatever, whatever your level of even intellect, it will not matter. It will not matter if you are pursuing truth. So your experience is where you will start, and that's what I'm talking about. So the like-mindedness, I agree with you totally.
Ron,
Yes.
first of all, let's understand this word church, because the scripture does not speak of church at all. It only speaks of an assembly. The word church came from the Greek through Latin, meaning that its root means a circle. And in that regard, it's speaking of something that happens over and over again without change. That's what we are. That's what the church is in the truest sense of the word. The assembly is different in that the assembly does not assemble based upon denominations or based upon cliques. The assemblage is speaking to those who are seeking righteousness, period. You have no thought about whether you are a Baptist or whether you are Catholic or whether you are Greek or whether you are a Delta. It doesn't matter with those who are seeking truth. Those terms of separation only come into play with those who seek to separate. And the whole idea and the foundation of the church has always been to separate. There has never been an effort to bring people together on an understanding of righteousness or the pursuit of truth. The church has always been self-serving from day one. However, the assembly, when Jesus said, upon this rock, I will build my church, he did not say church in the sense of a circle. That word that was speaking to an assembly was translated as church by the Catholics. The whole Greco-Roman mindset is always to separate, and separation gives you greater control. And that is the main reason that all churches are subdivided into different choirs and different auxiliaries in order to control by separating. Does that make sense?
It does indeed. It does indeed. In fact, that really kind of fits and support what I'm saying. That is the willful sinning. So there are, as you explain this, we as a world are not meeting the conditions of what is laid out here in Hebrew. If someone wants to make this point, or trying to make this point, that someone came to me with this week. But that does I'm sorry, go ahead.
Good morning, this is Barbara. The other thing that this reminds us of is that there are people who, quote unquote, assemble every Sunday or every Wednesday, meaning they get together, but if there's no truth and no understanding of who they are, and they use the word, well, don't forsake the assembling of yourselves together, there's no understanding of what that means. It has to do more than just physical physically being together. It is being spiritually one-minded, which is much greater than a physical location. Thank you.
And
Um,
Barbara, you
Barb,
just described the church. Meeting
Um,
on Sundays and Wednesday nights, that's the church.
I wanted to add to that. It just struck me when you said assembling yourselves together. You could look at that on a micro level, meaning each person assembling themselves together. That is understanding who they are.
Oh, I
And
like that.
that is the only way that we're going to get to this place in Hebrews, is that each person assembling themselves together, finding their way to who they are.
Yeah.
I like that, Audrey, because what I saw when you said that is you become of like mind.
I lost you, Pastor.
I didn't hear you.
We lost you.
We lost
Oh,
you for a second.
oh, okay, I
Last-
moved my finger. I was agreeing with you in that we have to assemble ourselves individually with an understanding, as you said, of who we are. And it is at that point that the magnetism of spirituality began to pull us together in assembly. No differently than we were pulled together in an assembly. We didn't seek it, it sought us, and then it apprehended us. So, but in order to be a church, all you have to do is say what people want to hear and badger them about not attending. But when you're searching for truth, you always find out that there are going to be those who's going to fall by the wayside. They're going to get tired. They're going to get frustrated. They're going to ask themselves, why am I doing this continuously and nothing is changing? However, those are the ones who fell by the wayside. Those who who continue are the ones who Jesus is talking about when you talk about the assemblage. The writer of Hebrews is writing about when he talks about the assembling of those, which he describes as really assembling of the righteous. I'm done. Thank you. A great observation, by the way, Audrey.
Yeah, great observation.
Good
Go ahead,
morning.
I'm sorry.
This is Kathy. Based on, I missed some of what Audrey said, but based on what I hear you all saying from what she's saying, so the assembling isn't necessarily even talking about physically assembling yourself together at all then, right? Based on what Audrey just said.
Right.
Agreed.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. See, when we talk about it all the time, if let's say that Ron introduces something that we're going to discuss, and he has to leave, we can pick up where Ron left off. Or if you just walk into the room while Ron is talking, and he said, I gotta go, and I need you all to pick this up, and you heard nothing else that he said other than the last couple of sentences, and someone refreshes you on what he said, when you finish teaching that, you will find that you've said nothing differently than what has been taught. You will find that you found nothing differently than what he had taught previously. Why? Because our assemblage individually is about searching ourselves for truth, for our desires. Once we do that, our assembling together in a spiritual assemblage of individuals then we become a collective who understands this journey for truth, and we are able to pick up where one left off, even without being there. Why? Because we are an assembly spiritually, more so than anything else. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Anyone else? I think Audrey's observation was beautiful, and that kind of sums it up. And I like what Pastor said. The great example of this, and it ties into what Audrey said, is what his example. He was meeting with 3 different groups on Saturdays, Sundays, and Mondays. And whether you realize it or not, all 3 of those groups had different personalities. And as you would imagine, in fact, I remember saying to him at one point, I could go to Columbia on Saturday and we talk about the same scripture on Sunday, and it comes out differently. It's the same scripture, and we're still talking about truth, and you're saying a lot of the same thing, but it just sounds different. It comes out different. It's presented different. It's received differently. But when it came time for all of us to come together, it happened seamlessly. And why? Because everybody had the same agenda. Everybody had the same agenda, and so I think those 2 things are brilliant examples, and kind of sums up the assembly, what that means. Good lesson, good start. Anyone else? Anything about this or anything else? Do you have any other questions or comments? Jackie, are you on the line today? Okay, I guess I should have asked that first. We were going to her question, and make sure that she doesn't have any follow-up on that. Hopefully she'll get a chance to hear the recording. Okay. If there's nothing else, I just had a thought, and I wanted to take a look at Matthew chapter 5. And this is every so often when we read the scriptures, most of the time there are verses that, we see but we don't see. And and I think we have gotten better at that. We seem to, our eyes or our eye notices everything. And 2 of these verses, to me, I just can't seem to leave alone. And that's Matthew chapter 5, verses 1 and 2. It is the only 2 verses in the chapter, as far as I can tell. Let's see. The only 2 verses in the chapter that is not in red. In other words, it's not Jesus talking. But it stands out to me. Matthew chapter 5, verses 1 and 2 says, and when he saw the multitude, he went up on the mountain, and after he sat down, his disciples came up. I want to look at that and look at disciples a little bit, and why does it emphasize after he sat down? The other part, verse 2 says, and opening his mouth, he began to teach them. Opening his mouth. We'll talk about the opening a little bit. So,
Ron, may I interject something?
Of course.
Okay, what I want to remind us of is that these descriptive words and sentences, or they speak to the idiomatic understandings of the Hebrews at that time, which meaning that what you read on the pages is not necessarily what they're saying, no different than somebody say, you get on my nerves. Someone from the East probably wouldn't know what you're talking about because that is a Western idiom. So there are idioms in the East, and Ron is about to explore some of them that guides us rather to the spiritual truth beneath the writing on the page. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Thank you, Pastor. I guess what I see here when I look at this is sort of a measurement, and a measurement that really sort of ties into what Audrey just said about the assembling of Ron, getting myself together and seeing who I am and gaining that understanding. This chapter, although it starts with when he saw the multitude, where did the multitude come from? If you go up into chapter 4, and I'm going to start with verse 23, and I'm going to read this. And Jesus was going about in all of Galilee, teaching in the synagogue and proclaiming the gospel of the kingdom and healing every kind of disease and every kind of sickness among the people. And the news about him went out into all Syria, and they brought to him all who were ill, taken with various diseases and pains and demonic, epileptic, and paralytic, and he healed them. And great multitudes followed him from Galilee to Decapolis to Jerusalem and Judea and from beyond the Jordan. So this is the multitude that he's talking about. But if you can put yourself here and see that although it uses the word multitude, what do you see? What is it that brought them to him? Because if you look at these things, it first appears that it is only talking about stuff that attacks the body. But this goes well beyond that. For example, why does it say sicknesses and diseases? You see, so some of this is not just talking about the physical part of it. Some of it is talking about spiritual, mental. He's talking about the wholeness of a person. So what is it that they saw that gave them that attachment to the word of God? Because I get to want to, instead of saying Jesus, they are attracted to the word. They are attracted to the power and the emphasis of what he's doing rather than the man himself. So when we look at this and see all these things that he addresses here, the other thing that we cannot leave out is all these towns and cities and regions, all of these talking about different races, different cultures of people, different ethnic backgrounds, different religions, if you will. So all these parts of you that have heard different things and have sat in different churches and we been taught different things. Where are you? Are you willing to sit down, drop what you're doing? Because here, what this is saying is, no matter where I am in my walk in life, I'm dropping what I'm doing to follow this, to find out more, because you touched something in me. That little flame has been ignited, and I feel something inside of me. It's not that you said something to tickle my ears is that you have caused me to experience something internal. And it is something that I've not heard before, and I'm going to drop what I'm doing to go and see what it is. So when you look at that 23 through 25, it's saying a great deal more than just some people that gathered together. As we have talked about the scriptures before, of course, there is a practical side of it. And the practical side is just what I said, is a multitude of people who are looking at, oh, he can heal me, he can heal this disease, he can heal this sickness, he can do this, he can do that, from this perspective. But this is saying so much more. And as you know, the going up on the mountain, we've already talked about. The very practical part of this is saying he goes up there so that his voice can be amplified and the people can hear him. The spiritual side of that knows that this is talking about much more than that. Okay, so any questions or comments on these verses so far?
And Ron,
Yes, sir.
is going to the mountain to speak? I
Yes,
see
sir.
something else in there as well.
Okay.
Going to the mountain to speak, I see him projecting as did Moses when he went in the mountain, got the law. When he went to the mountain to get the law, right?
Uh-huh.
I see Jesus as symbolically going into the mountain and as a spiritual reminder of where the quote unquote law of Moses originated. And in the same regard, the words that he spoke are the words, not so much as the law being repeated as they were as policies to be observed or examples to be observed, so that you would understand how to function in the midst of people who were not going to respond in a positive way to what you were teaching, meaning what Jesus was teaching was not going to be accepted in a positive way. And this is how you deal with it. That's the poor, that kind of thing. That's why he.
Yeah. Okay.
Because
Were you done?
And Luke said he stood in the desert and taught. He's standing on the ground when he taught them.
Okay. And I would when you said that the word ground, it's speaking of consciousness, I'm sure that is a message within itself as well.
Yes.
That is trying to say something as well, changing the consciousness in the earth, changing what man sees, what man is aware of. Thank you. Anyone else? I tried to find some information, look at this. I think something is here. I think something is in everything that we read. I think there are mysteries that are there. I think that his sitting down has some meaning to it. I think it is talking about, as Pastor said, he goes up into the mountain. This is an elevated place. It's a place of elevated thinking, seeing spiritual things. It is also a place, if you will, of giving up of self, going up there to become, moving up in a place of becoming. We don't think about it often enough, I suppose, at least maybe I don't. Being a human being, you are always becoming something. You are a human becoming, and so looking at this, he sat down, saying, "I am in an elevated place, but I'm going to meet you where you are. I'm going to lower myself so that we can talk and you can see with your eye what is being said here." This is in direct opposition to any and everything they've heard, any religious thing. It's almost you can go into a church, and many churches may open the book to Genesis chapter 2. I've been just picking one and teach from them, but you see something totally different. So the words on the page might be the same, but what is being taught not always open you up. It does not always touch you. It is not always something you can experience. It is just merely words. The other part of this that caught my attention is the disciples came to him, which means that they went to an elevated place as well. And when you look at the disciples, that has always been a word that fascinated me, because when you look at it, it simply means to follow, a follower. Excuse me. But this is talking about much more than that. It is talking about those who have forsaken everything. You have moved to a place inside of you that you realize there is value in what you want or are desiring to obtain. So the cost of it is, what do you want to give up? How much of this do you want? As is the question. That was the part of this that had, when I said this is a measurement for us. We're at a place where we have all experienced something, at least that has brought us to this point, or we would still be doing this. But we've each experienced something in our own way, and that measurement keeps us coming, and it moves to a place that where you are not only a disciple, meaning that it moves to a place where it will no longer be measured. You will, as Pastor put it earlier, you will become what you are seeking. So the disciples coming to him is saying, I want this at all costs, that I will leave this place of consciousness that is on the ground, and I will come up to you. I will come up to the word. And because this is what I am seeking, this is the value that I feel in my loins, in my gut, this thing that has awakened, has gotten my attention. So this just kind of grabbed my attention, because these words in the previous verses, again, are talking about every part of your being. It is talking about evilness or your unrightness. It is talking about religion. It is talking about everything that you can pursue. Some of these towns and places and villages that it talked about were very lucrative places as far as businesses are concerned. So this is talking about every walk of life. This does not leave anybody on the planet that out in this type of description that it is giving. So anything that is earthy so far that has gotten your attention, you have opportunity to compare it to what is inside of you. And that is a mouthful. Anything in the earth that has gotten your attention so far that you have seen or thought to be valuable, you have an opportunity now to compare it to the word that is in you and make that decision as to what you want to do. So the multitude saw that, they felt that, and they decided to pursue the truth that they heard or felt the vibrations from. And just thought that was interesting. Any questions or comments?
Ron, just to add something to what you said about the multitude, they were from lots of different situations, lots of different economic backgrounds, lots of different ethnic backgrounds. And so what it says in Matthew, in the 4th chapter, talked about what Isaiah prophesied, that the people who were in darkness would see a great light, would become aware of the truth. And so this says to me that truth is not a respecter of persons or a respecter of any kind of status per se, but that if you hunger for it, it meets whatever need you have, whatever thought of affliction or whatever thought of disease, that doesn't matter. So truth is more powerful than any of that. The other thing that I saw in this is that he pulled his disciples from lots of different disciplines. One was a tax collector. There were 2 fishermen, et cetera, et cetera. Mm-hmm. And so even the disciples were chosen from the different cultural backgrounds that the people represented, to say that if you're going to be a follower of truth, even that doesn't matter. Truth is the great equalizer in a sense. If and when you accept it, it is the great equalizer that equalizes everything else, irrespective of you or your background.
Thank you, Barbara. You're absolutely right. Very well said. Very well said. And there's this. It sounds and looks so simple. We see this, but as we look at this, and as we started off, as Barbara said, those. There is no excuse for anyone else, but I think about the voices in me and the things in me and my ambitions and the things I wanted, and even the things that I had at one point had considered extremely valuable to me. And believe it or not, that includes relationships. Not that you push people aside. I'm not saying that at all. But if you go after truth, everything is enhanced, because what you do, you move to a place of becoming. As I said, the human becoming, that being is energy. That being never stops moving. That being is what draws things to you. So you are constantly becoming. And as Barbara just pointed out, it makes no difference who you are or what your ethnic background, what language you speak. This touches the heart. This is the inner part of man. So as you are becoming, and I look at this second verse, that really kind of intrigued me. Opening his mouth, he began to teach. To me, what I kind of picture there is, he did not rehearse this. This is not an obligation that you have as a something dutiful or meaningful, like a job or something. This differentiates this from anything else in the earth. Opening his mouth. In other words, and I can't think of any other example. You don't buy a new car and go out there and put your key in the ignition and even have one thought of it not starting. You know that this is my brand new car and it's going to start. I don't even think about that. In fact, I am shocked when it doesn't start. When I flip the light on, I know that my lights are coming on when I hit that switch. So he opening his mouth know that something was going to come out. Why? Because he is the rhythm. He is the vibration. He is the energy. So opening his mouth, not only talk about being the breath, being the wind, being that light wave that we talked about when we looked in Genesis. He is creating something. He is the creator at this point, and he is creating something, and he is also the conduit because it comes through to him, comes through him from what is already truth. He represents truth. These, if you want to say it this way, the uniting of the heavens and the earth. This is bringing those two extreme parts together, and this opening, if you will, when you look it up, it does talk about an opening, but it means to open and release. To open and release. So there is something inside of you that has to be free. There is something inside of you that has to be uttered. It needs to be said. And the wind and the breath is what you're not only hearing these words. Those of you who have ears, let you hear. You're not only hearing in the manner of your physical ears, but you're absorbing this. In other words, as he speaks, he's breathing. He's on the mountain. He's breathing on them, and they are inhaling this. They're inhaling this. This is a creation unlike anything that Earth has seen before. So they're feeling this. They're in rhythm with it, and it is awakening who they are. So when I look at this and thought, this is saying so much more without even getting into these verses that we have labeled as being the Beatitudes. This is talking about so much more, because if he does, is verse 23, 24, and 25 does not happen, then there is no multitude. There is no multitude. So you look at what the word draws together, as has been said in different ways from different people. And I love that how we do that, and hopefully everybody gains understanding when multiple people kind of give explanations like that. In other words, every part of you has an opportunity to feel the vibrations from this. Every part of you has an opportunity to feel this rhythm. So, when he look at this and he talk about diseases and demonic and epileptic and these are not physical things. These are not physical things. So all of this comes together with him sitting down. All of this comes together with him going up the mountain. All of this comes together with him opening his mouth. All of these things are linked together. And so when I look at this, I said to myself, we are becoming. Ron, you are becoming. I don't ask myself, are you? You are becoming. You are becoming, and you are the link between these things that are being named. And again, this is all spiritual. If you choose to still follow it from the practical side, that is okay. But I think that as long as we keep talking about these things, no matter where we are, we will soon find ourselves in a place of comfort, and the place of comfort be the rhythm of what is being taught to you.
Ron.
Yes, sir.
I just saw something.
Okay.
Ask yourself this question. How many of you, or have you, maybe I should ask, Have you gone through some dark times in the last 4 to 6 weeks? And it seems like the light is beginning to appear. The weight is being lifted. The reason I ask you to raise that question with yourself is because in order for us to be as Jesus was when he taught the disciples, which means on taking on the essence of your teacher. If we are to take on the essence of Jesus, of our teacher, there are some prerequisites to that. And when I see something that connects to this, and what connects to it is what happened on the mountain. Jesus was in a desert place, meaning that he was in a place where he found no peace, no solace, no serenity. And there was an internal battle raging within him. And the scripture says that after he had gone through this battle, that the angels ministered to him. What does that mean? Let me say this about Jesus before I speak to that. After Jesus had been ministered to by the angels, very rarely did he ever get to the place where he battled within. Matter of fact, the next place he was when he was battling within was in the garden before the crucifixion. The angels ministering to him was not bringing him food. The angels ministering to him is saying that the messages, the thoughts of Elohim gave him the strength to move beyond the negative onslaught that he had experienced. It gave him the intestinal fortitude to persevere, regardless of what he was to face in the times coming before him. And I say all of this to say what I'm being shown is that these dark times, these pivotal periods in our lives are periods of time when we must rely on angelic support, meaning the messages that we've received, the thoughts that we seek to hold on that are righteous, to give us the strength to persevere and to rise above everything that would beset us. We are at a period on this journey when it is necessary for us to understand that if we are ever to be as Jesus was in the earth or doing greater things, and that is bringing harmony, we must first become that harmony. And becoming that harmony is allowing the angels, the messages of Elohim to strengthen us, to give us the guidance as to where to go from one point to the next without hesitation. If we are to be as Jesus was in this earth and do greater things as he said, this is the place where we have to be. We cannot resort to those behaviors that speaks against the journey that we are on. What do I mean? Those churches, the circular things that happen continuously in the church. We cannot be the church anymore. No matter what, we cannot be the church because that is not who we are. We are a righteous assembly. And to reference as being a church is to reference traveling in a circle, doing the same things over and over again without any progress towards harmony at all. We are divisive in nature if we do that. we must understand that the first gift that we received is breath, is spirit when we came into this earth. And the last gift and the last thing that we give is breath. It's the first gift we receive and the last gift that we give. And I'm saying between those two phases, there has to be a period where we experience this death, this onslaught that Jesus did, and reconcile within ourselves that we will not return to it as a dog returns to its vomit. We will continue to move forward under the strength and guidance of the words and thoughts of Elohim. Today, we are speaking about Jesus opening his mouth. Today, the mouth is being opened to tell you where we are and to encourage you to look to the words that you are taught, the words of truth, and to find your understanding from the soul that's within. And in doing so, the strength and power of the journey will not be easy, but it will be manageable. That's where we are at this period in time. There are no excuses for those of us who are seeking this the truth and the righteousness of this journey. Yes, we will face it, but the question is, are you going to allow it to stare you down? Or are you going to face it for a split second and keep moving because you are strengthened by a power greater than any power that possibly exists on this earth? Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Questions or comments, guys?
I do
Does
not
it make
intend
sense?
to take you off course, Ron. However,
Oh, not
I
at
felt
all.
very strong that I needed to say that.
Okay. I think it ties into where I was hoping to go or say anyway is, where are you as we look at this as something Audrey said, coming together. We first, that first has to be an individual thing. So where are you? I had someone come to me yesterday who was disturbed by something. One of her neighbors put up a Confederate flag and she was all distraught about it. And I sat there and listened to her, and it wasn't that long ago that would have bothered me. But it came to my mind almost immediately that my first concern was to bring peace to her. Didn't think about the flag. I started talking to her and calming her down and recognizing who you are. And you know, she is not someone who does, for as I know anyway, go to church. I think I've heard her say that before, and that is not necessarily a bad thing at all. But what I was trying to get her to see is the energy that you put out is what drives this earth, and one of the biggest things that is done to us as a people is keep us in fear. So that's the approach that I took from it. Do not fear these things. You have to know who you are and you know who the creator is. You got to trust that. So don't worry about the flag. He can put up 1,000 of them. But it is not, don't let these things bring fear or anger to you. So that's kind of, you know, how I saw that. And I hope that be my stance on a lot of things now, because things are going to come out to kind of take you in a direction. And it would be funny to know for us as a people if we could really see what energy looks like, and if we could see that the earth is not driven by any one people in it but us, no matter what their actions are. But if we are fearful of everything, if we are lack confidence and walk around in depression, if we are defeated by everything, what if those are the energies that run the earth? And the only time anybody can strive or gain wealth or gain status is when we're in that downtrodden state. But if we move our energy to one of enlightenment, to one of lightness, to one of seeking the light and the truth, if we move together, no matter what, in that we can change the energy of the earth. What if this whole thing is driven by our fear? So, that just
excuse me, I don't think that's a what if. I think it's the truth. And the fear is twofold. The fear that we have when we go through something, when it's a burden, and the fear that we have when we listen at talking heads on TV. Why is it that people who are truly searching for truth and they know where they can find a true understanding of the scriptures, why is it that they stay in that circle? Why? Why is it that they continue to move in that circle of nothingness? Why? Because they are afraid that if they leave that place, they won't have a place to have their funeral. They're afraid that they will have to pay a church to have their funeral. They're afraid to leave their quote unquote home church because they have been convinced that that's their home church or their church. And that in itself says that there's no power there. Because if it's yours and you don't know who you are, there's no power there. There's no righteousness there. There's no truth there. There is no door open for you there. And I'm not talking about those who are there with sincerity. I'm talking about those who are there because of the name of the church, the status, because the entertainment, because of the choir, because of those things that pertain to this world, and not those things that guides us through the other world. The fear is a real fear that has a grip on people. And their fear is inextricably tied to the perseverance that we have when we are faced with onslaught of not coincidence, onslaught of circumstances that we feel like are beyond our control. Everything is under our control. You are a disciple. You are the essence of the one who teaches you. You are the essence of Yeshua. You are the essence of everything that is righteous. Remember that. Just like when you grew up and you were told when you go out, remember you're Richard, remember you're Johnson, remember you're Smith, remember who you are. I'm saying that, remember who you are when you face adversity. Know who you are and don't bow to the unrightness that you face when you are in those circumstances. I'm done.
thank you, Pastor. Anyone else?
Um,
Uh,
I'm just agreeing with Pastor because this whole thing is about assembling yourself together. Get yourself together. Know who you are. And in that, you can survive whatever. You can go beyond the anger, the fear, the whatever, as long as you just get yourself together. So, I mean, to me, the whole thing is, everything we've said this morning is all about that. Anyway, that's all I wanted to say.
You're exactly right. You are exactly right. In fact, everything we've probably talked about, everything you can remember is about that. Get yourself together. Look at who you are. Those voices, those parts of you. Examine them. Examine you. Why do I like this? What makes me angry? Why do I like this? Who is this God that the scripture is talking about? What are these verses? What is this saying? How does this relate to me? Why do I feel this way? Why did that resonate with me? Why do I feel this rhythm from this?
Ron, is that not what Jesus did in the fourth chapter when he was on the when he was being tempted of the adversary?
Yes.
And pride. The pride was dealt with. The awareness of self was dealt with. When about everything he said, you don't live by bread alone, by every word that proceeds out of the mouth of God. All of those things are an example for us of the things that we deal with, as what I just said. We don't forsake the assembling of ourselves. These things come to us in one form or another as we go about our day-to-day living. As you say, the example of the woman with the flags. All of those things are things that help us to remember what we've assembled ourselves as, the who we are, the essence of who we are. And so it's only when Jesus went through all of those tests, etc., and he was in the desert, that later on he came and he went up to the mountain. And so it was an example of his consciousness expanding. And then when he sat down and opened his mouth, that was truth opening and revealing itself to all those who were here, all those who were hungry, all those who were hurt, all those who were in need. So truth was available to meet every single need that every person had if they simply accepted it.
Yes. Where they were.
Um,
Where they were. Yeah.
yeah, Barbara, you triggered something. When you talked about going up to the mountain, we talk about it being a place of enlightenment, a magnification of the light that we are, of the essence of Elohim. Think about this. When Jesus went to the mountain, he did not go to the mountain in a state of elevation that we normally think it is. Jesus went to the mountain, and as we put it, he called hell in a place of enlightenment. He didn't go and just receive enlightenment. He went to do an inventory of himself. Man should not live by bread alone. There's nothing on this earth material that can keep you alive. Be it your house, your money, it doesn't matter what Jesus said. Nothing can guarantee you survival in this earth realm except knowing who you are. The essence of being here is to filter out the unripeness by ripening yourself first. Jesus went to the mountain to become human, to establish his humanity. And the establishment of his humanity did not come without trial, without torment. And the establishment of it was when, when he was ministered to, when he was turned to the words and thoughts of God for his strength. If we keep that in mind, then we will understand that the place of elevation is not always an easy place to be. Thank you.
Wow. Okay. Sounds like I think I remember somebody else wanting to say something. Was there someone else on the line that had a thought? Is all of this making sense to you? Okay. I like that, and what Pastor just said. I had not thought about that as far as Jesus going up on the mountain. I never thought about it from that degree, that how real that struggle is, and kind of brings it all home to me anyway. And if there are not any other thoughts or questions, maybe we'll leave that to ponder and until we resume tomorrow morning. Okay. Thank you. I hope everybody got a thought, and if not, please, write it down or send a text or something, and we'll start there tomorrow. Okay.
Ron.
Yes, ma'am.
I have a question. Can anybody remember the lesson? What lesson it was where you talk about the lamb, laying down with the lion or whatever the scripture says? Do you remember the lesson that you was explaining that? It was a couple of weeks ago, but I couldn't remember which one. And the lady asked me a question. I told her we had talked about that in class, and I was going to ask if anybody remember what lesson that was, what day.
It seems like it came from a question, Kathy, and it was on a Monday, if I remember correctly. But that came from a question, and I don't remember the scripture. Does anybody remember the scripture? If not, I'll look it up and tell you tomorrow if nobody knows it now.
Okay, I was going to pull the lesson up, but I was wanting to listen to it again. So,
Thank you, Isaiah.
Oh, you want to know what? It seemed like it was on a Monday. I don't remember.
Oh, okay. I thought it was a Monday, but I wasn't for sure.
Pastor, do you remember what day that was? Couldn't have been what?
I don't remember which day it was.
Kathy, I think a good place to start would be not last Monday, but the Monday prior to that.
Okay.
And see if that was it. I don't want to say for sure. I'm pretty sure it was on a Monday though.
Oh, okay.
I don't like Monday class, but if not, if you don't see it, I'll try to help you find it because I don't remember right offhand.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Anyone else? Questions or comments? Okay. Well, thank you for your time. I think and my goodness, I love the input. The input brings so much clarity. Brings so much clarity to the things we're trying to put out there. We're trying to explain. So thank you for everybody. Thank you for your energy, whether you spoke or not. And look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Okay. Have a great Saturday.
Thanks, Ron. You too.
Thank you. Appreciate it. See you
Thank
tomorrow.
you. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.